It's a cool December morning on the Housatonic Railroad, where we position ourselves along River Road, parallel to the Berkshire Line, as the Housatonic NX-12 slowly makes their way south into New Milford. A mile south on River Road, we see the NX-12 with the Transformer plus 19 cars round the curve and cross over River Road. On Housatonic Avenue, we see the NX-12 on its final approach into New Milford Yard as they parallel Boardman Road that leads into Housatonic Avenue. The former New Milford station, we see NX-12 entering New Milford yard limits as they head through town and towards KC Siding. Across the river from KC Siding, we see Housatonic NX10. Once they were tied onto their 20-car train, pulling the train south to drop the transformer and the KC boxcar. Once the train was secure on the main, the NX-10 with the transformer pulls ahead of the KC switch to shove the transformer north onto KC Siding, then continue with its work. Once at the south switch, the NX-10 shoves back into KC Siding, where they'll spot the transformer at the north end of the siding to set it so the 229 will be positioned at the south pin. Once the transformer was set on the siding, the NX-10 heads back south onto the main to tie onto the KC boxcar and spot it onto the KC lead. Once tied onto the KC boxcar, the NX-10 heads back south ahead of the switch, where they'll shove the KC boxcar clear of the siding and position it on the KC lead. Once ahead of the switch, the NX-10 shoves back onto the KC lead. To spot the boxcar, then head back onto the main, then head south with 18 Oak Ridge gondolas. Once set on the lead, the NX-10 heads back south onto the main, to line and lock the mainline switch, then tie on to the rest of their train. Once tied on, the NX-10 is ready to depart south, with 0 loads and 18 Oak Ridge empties. As the NX-10 heads out of the Milford yard, we move to Old Middle Road to see NX-10 cross over into Brookfield and continue south at 10 miles per hour. At Berkshire Junction, we are positioned over the Berkshire Line, as the NX-10 shoves east on the Maybrook to roll the 18 Oak Ridge gondolas to position the 229 on the east end of the train. Once ahead of the switch, the 229 cuts away from the train and heads onto the Danbury main as the gondolas head down the Tilcon main track, making it an efficient way to run around the train. Once the train was in the clear, the NX-10 pulls back out onto the main to tie onto the 18 gondolas and spot 17 of them on the Danbury main. On Farrell Road, we see the NX-10, after heading engines late to Hollyville, pulling 4 out of 5 cars from Chippewa, where they'll shove back and brake test the cars prior to heading back west to Danbury. After a successful brake test, the NX-10 departs Hollyville with 4 empties from Chippewa. At International Drive, we see the NX-10, after rolling the Chippewa cars and tying on to that one Oak Ridge car, heading west on the Telcon main track, bound for Oak Ridge. At Four Corners, we are positioned at the former Brookfield station, where new track and material can be seen all over. 2 new sections of track can be seen positioned closer to the station house, with crossing pads and ties positioned closer to the bridge. Everything positioned trackside, creating easy access for when work begins. Brook Park, there are no upcoming changes here. For NX10, it's the same 10 miles per hour speed restriction as they enter the Milford yard limits at milepost 9. As NX10 heads back into the Milford yard, that will conclude our day with NX10 and bring us to the next day where we set up across the river from KC siding. When the 229 Extra is seen, heading south out of New Milford yard limits, bound for Danbury Yard and later Agway. From Addis Park, we are back at Brook Park when the 229 is seen entering DCS territory as it heads south out of the Milford yard.
Housatonic train dispatcher, over. Yeah, sure. 229 south is clear of New Milford yard limits, over. Okay, roger. Extra GMTX 229 south and clear of New Milford yard limits at this time. Roger that, over. Hey, thanks, 229 out. Alright, thanks, dispatch out.
Miles south of Brook Park, we set up on Old Middle Road when the 229 comes through at track speed, which is 10 miles per hour. continuing south into Brookfield, we are back at Four Corners as the 229 passes the old station depot while ducking under the Route 25 overpass. On Oak Grove Road, we see the 229 with the transformer in tow, slowly tracking south as they idle behind neighborhoods. Onto Junction Road, the 229 has the high ground as they cross over the graffitied bridge while closing the gap between Berkshire Junction. On Vale Road, we see the 229 rounding the curve and down the straightaway as they are on their final approach for Berkshire Junction. From Vale Road, it is on to the Maybrook Line as the 229 passes behind Harley-Davidson on their final approach to Danbury Yard. Wildman Street, we see the 229 rounding the curve into Danbury Yard as the conductor realigns the switch for the Telcon main track. Due to the lack of activity on this portion of the line, the crossings west of Oak Ridge have to be manually activated. So once at a stop, the conductor will manually activate the Wildman Street crossing. Then the 229 will proceed west into the yard. Once west of Wildman Street, the 229 cuts away from the transformer and will pull ahead of the crossover that leads to the Danbury main. Once west of the crossover, the conductor realigns the switch. Then the 229 proceeds east onto the Danbury main and towards Wildman Street. Once at a stop, the crossing is manually activated once again, so the 229 can proceed to the crossover that leads to the Tilcon main track. At the Danbury Railway Museum, we see the transformer, with the 229 shoving it towards White Street, being followed by a track foreman, where the process of manually activating and deactivating crossings continue. Danbury Railway Museum, we continue west on the Maybrook, as the 229 crosses over Rose Hill Avenue on the Tilcon Main. On Seeger Street, we see the 229 round the bend as they slowly approach the crossing and head on to the single-track main. Just east of Agway, we see the offloading site being prepared, as the crane is already situated and the 229 Extra is on final approach. Once the transformer was spotted and the 229 was tied down, we move east to Hollyville, where we see the NX-10 with the 22 heading engines light to Chippewa to pick up one boxcar, then head back west to Berkshire Junction. Once the switch was realigned, the NX-10 heads into the Chippewa reload. Once tied onto the boxcar, the NX-10 heads west out of Chippewa and back onto the main, where they'll realign the switch for the main, then head west to Berkshire Junction. At Berkshire Junction, we are in the same place as yesterday to watch them proceed down the hill to pick up 4 Oak Ridge empties prior to shoving west to Oak Ridge. At International Drive, we see the NX-10 shoving west to Oak Ridge with the 4 Oak Ridge gondolas that were picked up at the junction. As the NX-10 shoved west to Oak Ridge, that would conclude our day with the Housatonic Railroad. And as always from the Weathered Rails, thanks for watching.